For years, younger generations have been told that if they just spent less on small luxuries, coffee, eating out, avocado toast, they'd eventually be able to afford a home. But for many people, that explanation feels completely disconnected from reality. Housing prices in many cities have risen far faster than wages, while interest rates, investor activity, limited supply, inflation, and broader economic forces have dramatically changed the cost of home ownership. Today, we will talk about Stop Blaming Avocado Toast. Housing is unaffordable because of this. So, before we get started, make sure to hit that like button. Also subscribe to my channel. 10. The avocado toast argument misses the entire problem. For years, younger generations have been told a simple explanation for why they struggle to buy homes. They spend too much money on small luxuries: coffee, takeout, vacations, subscriptions, and avocado toast became symbols of financial irresponsibility in public conversations about housing affordability. The message was clear: if people simply spent less and saved more, home ownership would still be easily achievable. But this explanation ignores the actual scale of the problem. Housing prices in many countries have risen dramatically faster than wages for decades. The issue is no longer about cutting a few small expenses. The math itself has changed in a way that makes home ownership increasingly difficult, even for disciplined savers with stable incomes. 9. Housing prices rose faster than income for years. One of the biggest reasons housing became unaffordable is the growing gap between income growth and property prices. In many cities, home values increased far more rapidly than average wages over long periods. Salaries may have risen gradually, but housing costs often accelerated much faster due to demand, investment activity, population growth, and limited supply. This means that even people earning decent incomes today may struggle to buy homes that previous generations could afford on ordinary salaries. The relationship between earnings and housing prices slowly became disconnected, making ownership increasingly difficult for first-time buyers. 8. Low interest rates inflated property prices. For many years, extremely low interest rates made borrowing cheaper. While this initially helped buyers access mortgages more easily, it also created a powerful side effect: home prices surged upward. Cheap borrowing increased purchasing power across the market, which pushed prices higher as more buyers competed for limited inventory. Investors, institutions, and homeowners all benefited from rising property values, but new buyers faced growing barriers to entry. Over time, low rates inflated the housing market itself, making affordability worse despite easier financing conditions. 7. Investors and institutions entered the housing market aggressively. Housing increasingly shifted from being viewed mainly as shelter to being treated as an investment asset. Large investors, corporations, private equity firms, and wealthy individuals began purchasing residential properties at scale in many regions. This increased competition for ordinary buyers significantly. Investors often have advantages such as larger capital reserves, access to financing, and the ability to purchase quickly. When housing becomes heavily financialized, prices can rise beyond what local incomes alone would normally support, because investment demand begins influencing the market alongside basic housing demand. 6. Supply failed to keep up with demand. Another major factor is limited housing supply. In many cities, population growth, urbanization, zoning restrictions, construction costs, and slow development processes reduce the pace of new housing creation. When demand rises faster than supply, prices naturally increase. This shortage becomes even worse in economically strong cities, where jobs, infrastructure, and opportunities attract more people continuously. Limited land availability in desirable areas also adds pressure. Over time, the imbalance between supply and demand transformed housing from a basic necessity into an increasingly scarce and competitive asset. 5. Inflation increased the cost of building homes. Housing affordability is not only affected by existing home prices, it is also shaped by the cost of building new homes. Construction materials, labor, land prices, insurance, permits, and financing costs all increased over time. Inflation raised the cost of nearly every part of the building process, which pushed new housing prices even higher. Developers facing higher expenses pass those costs into final property prices, making affordable construction increasingly difficult in many regions. 4. Debt became normalized across entire generations. Many younger buyers enter adulthood already carrying student loans, credit card debt, or rising living expenses before even considering home ownership. This changes the financial equation significantly. Previous generations often faced lower education costs and smaller debt burdens relative to income. Today, large portions of earnings may already be committed toward debt repayment, reducing the ability to save for down payments or qualify comfortably for mortgages. Housing affordability, therefore, cannot be separated from the broader debt-heavy economic environment many people now live within. 3. Wage growth did not match the cost of living. Another critical issue is that wages often failed to keep pace not only with housing, but with overall living costs. Healthcare, transportation, childcare, food, utilities, and insurance all became more expensive over time. Even households earning what once would have been considered strong middle-class incomes now spend much larger portions of earnings simply maintaining daily life. This reduces the amount available for long-term saving and makes accumulating enough capital for home ownership increasingly difficult. 2. Housing became a wealth machine for existing owners. One reason the system became difficult to change is because rising housing prices benefited existing property owners enormously. Homeowners gained equity growth, investment gains, and increased net worth as prices climbed. Governments, financial institutions, and investors also benefited from strong housing markets because housing became deeply tied to economic growth and financial stability. 1. The real reason housing feels unaffordable. The deeper truth about housing affordability is that modern housing markets increasingly operate as investment systems rather than purely shelter systems. Because the truth is simple: when limited supply, cheap credit, investor demand, inflation, rising construction costs, and stagnant wage growth collide together, housing prices eventually move beyond what ordinary incomes can comfortably support. What do you think of our video? Let me know in the comment section below. Before you go, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.